A widowed businessman returns home early on a rainy afternoon, burdened by the guilt of having distanced himself from his son since his wife's death. As he steps through the door, he finds the boy, once silent and hostile, laughing and helping a stranger in the kitchen. Surprised, he discovers that the new nanny, with quiet empathy, managed to touch the heart that so many had failed to reach. In that moment he understands. Perhaps love did not leave with grief. It was only waiting for a new form to return. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We continue. The rain lashed against the streets of Aspen in the Colorado Rockies. As Augustus Harrington's executive car drove down the main avenue, after 3 months overseeing the international expansion of his vineyards across Europe, the businessman was finally returning home. The driver slowed down upon entering the tree-lined neighborhood where the Harrington mansion stood, an imposing stone and timber construction that towered among the pine trees. "Are you eager to see your family again, sir?" asked Joshua, his trusted driver, adjusting the rearview mirror. Augustus smiled wearily. "More than you can imagine. I can't wait to hug my Clara." Clara, his 7-year-old daughter, was his world. During his trip, he had sent expensive gifts, designer dresses, and even a handcrafted doll made in Vienna. In addition, generous transfers were made monthly to Renee, his wife's account, ensuring the girl lacked nothing. The car moved slowly down the street when something unusual caught Augustus's attention. A thin child, in a faded dress that looked familiar, was standing in front of the mansion of the neighbor, Mr. Oliver, a man known for his grumpiness. Augustus squinted to see better through the rain. "It couldn't be, ... Stop the car," he ordered, feeling his heart race. It was Clara. His daughter was there, drenched by the rain, timidly knocking on the neighbor's gate. Augustus froze for an instant, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The dress was exactly what he had sent from Milan, now faded and too large for the visibly thinner body of the girl. Mr. Oliver opened the gate, and even from afar, Augustus could see the scorn on his face. The neighbor gestured dismissively, and then, in an act of cruelty, poured what appeared to be coffee on the ground, laughing as he slammed the gate shut in Clara's face. "My God, ... double quotes," Augustus murmured, jumping out of the car without caring about the rain. He ran like never before, feeling every raindrop like a pang of guilt. When he reached his daughter, Clara turned around startled, but her little brown eyes lit up upon recognizing him. "Daddy?" Augustus wrapped her in his coat, taking her into his arms. She was so light. "What are you doing out so here, fragile, princess? Where is your mother?" Clara lowered her gaze. "Mommy's been sleeping for a long time. I was hungry, ... Something cold ran down Augustus's spine. With his daughter in his arms, he crossed the street toward his mansion. With my mind was wrong. The sign that something was wrong. The garden, once immaculate, was neglected and full of trash. "Joshua, take Clara to the car and turn on the heater, please," he asked the driver who had followed him. Clara clung to her father. "I don't want to be alone, ... double quotes. I'll be right back, princess. I promise. I just need to talk to your mother." Reluctantly, the girl agreed to go with Joshua, who wrapped her in his own coat. Augustus advanced through the house, feeling a mixture of anger and despair grow with each step. In the kitchen, he found a pile of dirty dishes infested with flies. The refrigerator was almost empty, only sour milk, moldy bread, and, affixed to the door, a liquor store bill with an astronomical amount. It was in the master bedroom that he found Renee. Her hair, once shiny and well-kept, was greasy and disheveled. Wearing a stained bathrobe, she lay amidst dirty sheets, an empty bottle beside the bed. "Renee," he called, his voice barely under control. She stirred slowly, opening her eyes with difficulty. "Augustus, you... God came back early." "No, I arrived exactly when I said I would." His voice was cold as steel. "Where is the money I sent every month?" Renee stood up, swaying, trying to fix her hair. "It's not what it looks like. I just... had a few bad days. A few days." Augustus pointed to the chaos around them. "I found our daughter begging for food from the neighbor, Renee. She's thin, in a faded dress I sent months ago." "You don't understand," she retorted, suddenly defensive. "You don't know what it's like to be alone here. The bills, the responsibilities... What bills? I pay for everything. I sent more than enough for you to live comfortably for an entire year." Renee averted her gaze, her eyes momentarily landing on a half-open drawer. Augustus reached it before her, revealing several bills for expensive drinks and jewelry, all with exorbitant amounts. "What is this?" "You spent our daughter's money on alcohol and jewelry. I needed something to feel good. You weren't here." Augustus took a deep breath, trying to control himself. "I saw Clara begging Mr. Oliver for food. She was starving, Renee." Something snapped in Renee. Her eyes filled with fury and despair. She grabbed a half-empty bottle and hurled it against the wall, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. "I can't take it anymore. I can't stand this pressure. This house, this child, always demanding something from me." Augustus recoiled, shocked by the outburst. In that instant, he made his decision. "I'm taking Clara with me now, and I'm going to fight for her custody." Renee laughed, a hysterical laugh. "You can't. She's my daughter. A daughter you let starve while you spent my money on alcohol." Augustus headed for the door. "My lawyer will contact you tomorrow." Outside, thunder ripped across the Aspine sky. Augustus crossed the garden towards the car, where Clara waited, huddled in the back seat. As he got into the vehicle, he saw his daughter's frightened eyes. "It's all right, my love. We're going somewhere warm now." "Is Mummy coming too?" the girl asked in a weak voice. Augustus hesitated, feeling the weight of that innocent question. "No, princess. Mummy needs to rest. It'll just be the two of us." As the car drove away, Augustus saw Renee appear at the door in the rearview mirror, shouting something that the rain swallowed. In that moment, with the Harrington mansion fading behind them, he knew nothing would ever be the same. He would have to rebuild his daughter's world, piece by piece, and protect her from the one who should have been her protector. "Where are we going, sir?" asked Joshua. Augustus caressed Clara's damp hair as she began to fall asleep, exhausted. "To the Pines Hotel for now. And first thing tomorrow, I want you to call Dr. Miller. Tell him it's urgent." The rain continued to fall, heavier now, as if the sky also wept for what Augustus had just discovered. In his lap, Clara finally slept, and he swore to himself that he would never again leave his daughter helpless. The Pines Hotel, one of Aspen's most traditional establishments, had few guests that stormy night. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw Augustus Harrington, a well-known figure in the town, enter carrying a sleeping child in his arms. Despite the establishment's characteristic discretion, it was impossible not to notice the girl's condition: disheveled hair, a faded dress, and a worrying thinness. "I need a suite, please." "The best you have available," Augustus said, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Clara. "Certainly, Mr. Harrington," the receptionist replied, typing quickly. "Would you like us to arrange something for the little one? Perhaps a snack?" Augustus looked at his daughter and nodded gratefully. Yes, please. A hot soup, a simple sandwich, and warm milk if possible. Minutes later, settled in the presidential suite, Clara woke up. Her eyes scanned the unfamiliar surroundings with a mixture of confusion and relief. "We're in a hotel, Princess," Augustus explained gently. "We'll stay here for a few days." A knock at the door announced the arrival of dinner. Clara ate slowly, with small spoonfuls of the steaming soup, occasionally sobbing between bites of the sandwich. Augustus watched her every move, feeling a deep pain as he realized how something as simple as a warm meal seemed extraordinary to his daughter. "Daddy, will Mummy be angry?" Clara asked, her voice almost a whisper. Augustus swallowed hard. "Don't worry about that now. We'll take care of you first." After the warm bath, during which Augustus horrifyingly noticed some bruises on the girl's arm, he helped her put on pajamas borrowed from the hotel, too large for her fragile body. He carefully combed her hair, gently removing the knots. When he finally tucked her into bed, pulling the blanket up to her shoulders, Clara looked like a different child. "Tell me a story," she asked, clutching the pillow as if she feared someone would snatch it away. Augustus improvised a story about a brave princess who, after many adventures, found a safe and welcoming castle. When Clara's breathing finally became deep and regular, he moved away from the bed and picked up his cell phone. It was time to contact his lawyer, Dr. Ernest Miller, one of the most respected family law specialists in Colorado. The conversation was brief and objective. Augustus explained the situation, the neglect found, the child's condition. The lawyer, already accustomed to complex cases, was direct. "I need evidence, Augustus. Photos of the house, evidence of neglect, witnesses if possible. I have the photos. I took several before leaving." "Good. I'll prepare an emergency custody petition and a protection order. But I need you to come to the office early tomorrow and bring the girl. The judge may want to hear from her, depending on how the case proceeds." When he hung up, Augustus felt the weight of the situation. He was about to embark on a battle against his daughter's mother, the woman he had once loved. But looking at the sleeping Clara, he knew he had no choice. He sat at the hotel desk and began writing a detailed email to Ernest, attaching photos of the dilapidated mansion and the liquor store debt note. He described how he had found his daughter begging for food, the house in ruins, Renee's evidence of alcoholism. He expressly requested divorce, emergency custody, and a protection order. As he wrote, he felt his phone vibrate several times, with messages from Renee, alternating between pleas, threats, and justifications. He ignored them all. Around 3 a.m, Clara began to stir restlessly in bed, murmuring in her sleep. Augustus approached, concerned. "No, don't leave me outside. It's cold, double quotes," she murmured, agitated. Augustus sat on the edge of the bed and gently stroked her head. "I'm here, my love. Daddy's here." Gradually, Clara calmed down, but her small
"Promise you
hands
won't
gripped
leave
her
me
father's
outside
arm
again?"
with surprising
she
strength,
asked,
semi-awake. The question hit Augustus like a punch. "I promise, my princess. No one will ever leave you in the rain again." When she fell back asleep, Augustus remained sitting on the edge of the bed, letting silent tears fall. What kind of trauma had his daughter faced in these months? What else had Renee done beyond what he had already discovered? At dawn, Augustus was woken by the insistent ring of his cell phone. It was Renee. Reluctantly, he answered. "Augustus, please, you need to hear me." Her voice sounded more sober, but still shaky. "I know I made mistakes, but I can explain. These months have been hard for me. Hard for you," he cut in, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Clara. "What about our daughter? Do you have any idea what she's been through?" It was a moment of weakness. "I deserve a chance. I found Clara begging for food in the rain, Renee. She has bruises on her arms. She was starving." A silence on the other end of the line, then a sob. I can change. I can get treatment. Just give me a chance to prove. ... I've made my decision. My lawyer will contact you later today." As they prepared to leave, Augustus received an anonymous message. "She's my daughter too. You can't just take her. I know where you are." A chill ran down his spine. How would Renee know where they were? He looked at the window, checking if anyone was watching. As a precaution, he decided to change his plans. Instead of going directly to Ernest's office, he would make a detour. "Change your plans, Clara," he said, trying to maintain a cheerful tone. "We're going to have breakfast on the way." They left the hotel through the service entrance, avoiding the main lobby. In the car, Joshua seemed tense. "Sir, there's a car parked across the street since last night. It might be nothing but ... double quotes. I understand. Let's take a different route, Joshua. And if you notice we're being followed, let me know." During the journey, Augustus made a quick call to Ernest, explaining the situation. The lawyer suggested a discreet restaurant near his office, where they could meet safely. The Mountain Coffee House was a family-run establishment, frequented mainly by local workers. Augustus chose a table at the back, away from the windows. Clara, still sleepy, rested her head on his shoulder. "What are we going to eat today, Princess?" he asked, trying to distract her. "Can I choose anything?" Her eyes widened at the possibility. "Of course. Pancakes with chocolate." A faint smile appeared on her tired face. "Pancakes with chocolate, then." While they waited, Augustus noticed Dr. Ernest enter the cafe. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, walked naturally towards them, as if it were a casual meeting. "Augustus, what a surprise to find you here," he said, playing along. Then he looked at Clara with a gentle smile. "And this must be Clara." Clara shyly huddled against her father, who made the introductions. "This is a friend of Daddy's, Clara, Dr. Ernest." The lawyer pulled up a chair and joined them, ordering only coffee. While Clara was distracted with her pancakes, the two men conversed in low voices. "Things have gotten complicated," Augustus explained. "Renee knows where we're staying. We've received threatening messages." "That could work in our favor," Ernest replied, serious. "It demonstrates emotional instability and potential risk to the child. I'll add that to the protection order request. I need to find a safer place for us to stay. I have a suggestion," Ernest said, lowering his voice even further. "I know a discreet inn in the mountains. Few people know about it. It's run by my wife's family. You can stay there until the preliminary hearing." Augustus nodded, grateful. "And what about additional evidence?" "I already have an investigator check in your neighborhood. If there are witnesses to Renee's behavior during these months, he'll find them." When they finished their meal, Clara seemed more cheerful, with a little color in her pale cheeks. Before they left, Ernest knelt down to be at her eye level. "Clara, I know this is all very confusing for you, but I want you to know that we are all here to help you, okay?" The girl looked at him with big, serious eyes, then nodded almost imperceptibly. As they left the cafe, Augustus carried his daughter in his arms, as if her weight was the only anchor in a world that had suddenly become strange and dangerous. He didn't know what the coming days would bring, but he was determined to protect Clara at all costs. The Evergreen Inn was hidden among ancient pine trees, 20 minutes from downtown Aspen. The winding, narrow road made the place practically invisible to anyone who didn't know of its existence. It was a cluster of 5 wooden chalets, each with a view of a small lake. Perfect for those seeking discretion, Mrs. Teresa, a 70-year-old woman with keen eyes and hands calloused by work, personally welcomed Augustus and Clara. She asked no questions about the unusual circumstances, a wealthy man staying at her modest inn with a visibly distressed child, but her compassionate gaze said she understood more than she revealed. The back chalet is the most private, she explained, guiding them along a stone path. No one will bother you here. The interior was simple but cozy. A living room with a fireplace, a compact kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. Everything impeccably clean and inviting. Clara explored the space timidly, as if fearing that comfort might vanish at any moment. "Do you like it, Princess?" Augustus asked, watching her touch the colorful patchwork quilt on the bed. She nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "It's pretty. It looks like a storybook house." Mrs. Teresa appeared at the door with a tray. "I brought hot chocolate and cinnamon buns. I imagined the little one might be hungry." Augustus's grateful look said it all, while Clara savored the buns, eating slowly, as if wanting each bite to last as long as possible. Augustus received a call from Dr. Ernest. "We found something," the lawyer said without preamble, or rather, someone. "Who?" "Mrs. Iris, your neighbor from the Blue House. That retired lady who lives alone." Augustus knew Mrs. Iris well, a retired teacher who had lived next to his mansion for over 2 decades. A discreet and observant woman. "She has important information and wants to speak directly with you. She said she kept things you need to see." "Things? What things?" "She wouldn't tell me. She insists it's a matter for the girl's father, not for lawyers." There was a pause. "Augustus, I think it's risky for you to go back to the neighborhood now. Renee might be watching. I understand your concern, but if Mrs. Iris has something that can help Clara, I need to go. I can ask Joshua to arrange a discreet meeting." After hanging up, Augustus called his trusted driver, instructing him to contact Mrs. Iris and arrange a visit for the following day. Meanwhile, he would try to keep Clara as comfortable as possible. The rest of the day passed with forced calm. Augustus did his best to distract his daughter. He told stories, showed her the birds that visited the lake, and even improvised a game of hide-and-seek in the chalet. Clara responded with restrained joy, as if she feared fully surrendering to happiness. When night came and he put her to sleep, she asked the same question as the night before. "Promise you won't leave me alone?" "I promise, my love. I'm right here in the next room, and the door will be open. Just call me." After ensuring she was deeply asleep, Augustus sat on the small chalet balcony, watching the moon reflected in the lake. His cell phone vibrated again. More messages from Renee. This time, however, there was something different. They weren't just pleas or accusations, but a photograph. An image of him and Clara leaving the Mountain Coffee House that morning. How had she found them? Alarmed, he called Dr. Ernest, who answered immediately despite the late hour. "She followed us, Ernest. Somehow, Renee knew where we were. This is concerning. I'll ask the judge to consider this a violation of the temporary order. In the meantime, stay vigilant. If she finds out where you are now, ... I understand." "And what about our meeting with Mrs. Iris tomorrow?" "Change your plans. I wouldn't risk it. I'll send my assistant to bring her to you. Safer that way." The next morning, Clara woke with a lighter spirit. Augustus noticed that, for the first time since he found her, she had slept through the night without nightmares. a small progress that filled his heart with hope. After breakfast, eggs, fruit, and homemade bread brought by Mrs. Teresa, Augustus explained to his daughter that they would be receiving a visitor. "Mrs. Iris? The lady with the kittens?" Clara asked, with a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. "Yes, that's her. Do you remember her? She used to give me cookies when I was outside, and she'd let me pet her kittens when it rained a lot." Augustus felt a pang in his heart. How many times had his daughter been outside for the neighbor to need to feed her? He suppressed the anger growing in his chest and forced a smile. "She's a very kind lady, and she really wants to see you." Promptly at 10 in the morning, a discreet car parked in front of the inn. Julianne, Dr. Ernest's assistant, helped Mrs. Iris out. Despite her 80 years, she walked upright, with a dignity that the years had not bowed. She carried an old shoebox. Upon seeing Clara, her tired eyes lit up. "My little one," she said, opening her arms. To Augustus's surprise, Clara ran into the old woman's embrace, without the hesitation she showed with others. It was evident that a special bond existed between them. After a few moments of light conversation, during which Mrs. Teresa provided tea and cookies for everyone, Augustus asked Julian to take Clara to see the fish in the lake, giving them privacy to talk. When they were alone, Mrs. Iris untied the string from the box. "Mr. Harrington, I'm not one to meddle in other people's affairs. I've lived long enough to know that every house has its cross to bear, but there are some things you just can't ignore, especially when a child is involved." She opened the box, revealing its contents: several photographs, paper clippings with dates and times noted, and a small, old voice recorder. "It started about 2 weeks after you left," she explained, sifting through the materials. "I noticed Clara in the garden, alone, late at night. I thought it was a one-off, but it kept happening. And it got worse." She showed the first photo, Clara huddled under a tree in the Harrington garden, hugging her knees in a light rain. This was in April. It was raining, not very heavily, but enough for a child to get wet. She stayed there for 2 hours. I called her over, gave her hot chocolate and cookies, let her play with my cats. When I asked why she was outside, she said Mummy had visitors and didn't want noise. More photos emerged. Clara sleeping on a garden bench with only a thin coat to protect herself from the night dew. The girl trying to reach fruit from a neighboring tree. Clara sitting on the sidewalk, gazing longingly down the street, as if waiting for someone who would never arrive. I started documenting everything: dates, times, conditions. I didn't know if it would ever be useful, but my teacher's heart wouldn't let me ignore it. Then Mrs. Iris picked up the small recorder. "This might be the most important thing. Your wife used to visit me occasionally, drink tea, vent. I think she felt lonely. In the last few weeks I started recording our conversations." She pressed play. Renee's voice, slightly slurred, filled the room. "It's so hard, Mrs. Iris. Augustus left me here with all this responsibility. Another mouth to feed, a child demanding attention all the time. I wasn't born for this, you know. I was a model. I had a promising career before I got pregnant. ... Mrs. Iris fast-forwarded the recording. Double quotes. ... Yesterday I had to send her outside again. I brought a friend home, we were talking, drinking, and she kept interrupting. What could I do? Children need to learn boundaries. ... Augustus closed his eyes, feeling nauseous. Who was that woman on the recording? Certainly not the Renee he had known. The one he had married, who had sworn to love and protect their daughter. "There's more," Mrs. Iris said, hesitantly. "Things that... Well, that show there were men in the house, frequently, and that Clara was treated as a nuisance. Please, show me everything, Augustus pleaded, his voice choked. I need to know exactly what was happening. Over the next hour, Mrs. Iris presented her meticulous evidence, photos of unknown cars in the Harrington garage, arrival and departure times of visitors, recordings of Renee talking about deserved fun and how it was unfair to be tied down by a child. The most disturbing piece of evidence was a shaky video taken from Mrs. Iris's garden, showing Clara sitting on the porch during a thunderstorm, drenched, while lights and music emanated from inside the house. This was 3 weeks ago, the elderly woman explained. I tried to call her, but she was afraid to disobey her mother. She said she had been naughty and needed to learn her lesson. I only managed to convince her to come to my house when the lightning started. Augustus could barely control his breathing. Each new revelation was a stab. How had he not noticed the signs? How had he trusted so blindly? Mr. Harrington, Mrs. Iris said, placing a wrinkled hand over his. I know this is painful, but there's something you need to understand. Your daughter never lost hope. Even on the worst days, she would say, my daddy will come back. That certainty kept her strong. Through the window, Augustus watched Clara by the lake, laughing as strong Julian showed her how to skip stones on the water. That innocent laughter, surviving despite everything, was both his comfort and his greatest pain. Iris, you saved my daughter, he said finally. And now you're going to help us keep her safe. Can I count on you as a witness in court? The elderly woman straightened her shoulders, her gaze gaining surprising firmness. I'll be there. For Clara, I would face the devil himself. When Julian and Clara returned, the girl ran excitedly to show a small blue feather she had found. Look, Daddy. Julianne said, it's from a blue jay. It's lucky. Augustus hugged his daughter tightly, inhaling the scent of her hair, feeling her smallness against his chest. Yes, my love, it's very lucky. And you know what? Our luck is changing. That afternoon, after Mrs. Iris's departure, Augustus sent all the digitized evidence to Dr. Ernest, who replied immediately, we can request permanent custody with no visitation rights. I'm preparing the documents right now. Augustus looked at Clara, who was drawing peacefully at the kitchen table. He noticed that, for the first time in days, she wasn't constantly looking at the door, not checking if he was still nearby. A small sign that she was starting to feel safe, but the battle was just beginning. And Augustus knew Renee wouldn't give up easily. The Aspen Courthouse was an imposing stone and glass building, contrasting with the predominant Bavarian architecture in the town. That Monday morning, as tourists strolled carelessly through the flower-adorned streets, Augustus parked his car a discreet distance from the main entrance. Remember what we talked about, Princess? He asked, turning to Clara in the back seat. The girl nodded, adjusting the navy blue dress that Mrs. Teresa had bought, specially for that day. Her hair, now shiny and well-combed, was styled in an elaborate braid, the work of the inn owner's skillful hands. I just need to tell the truth to the lady who's going to talk to me, Clara repeated, serious. And I don't need to be afraid. Exactly. Dr. Lucy is very kind. She just wants to know how you are and what things were like at home before I came back. Dr. Ernest had explained that. Before the hearing with the judge, Clara would be interviewed by a forensic psychologist. This professional's report would be crucial for the case. When they arrived at the designated waiting room, Augustus felt his stomach clench. It was all so cold, so formal, an intimidating environment for a child who had already been through so much. But to his surprise, The psychologist, Dr. Lucy Carter, had transformed her room into a welcoming space, with colorful cushions on the floor, carefully arranged toys, and drawings by other children on the walls. "Hello, Clara," the psychologist said with a warm smile, kneeling down to be at the girl's eye level. "What a beautiful dress you're wearing today." Clara looked at her father, seeking reassurance, and then smiled shyly at the woman. "Thank you. Mrs. Teresa bought it for me." "Mr. Harrington," the psychologist addressed Augustus, "our conversation should last approximately an hour. You can wait out here, and I promise I'll take good care of Clara." Augustus nodded, gently squeezing his daughter's hand before letting go. "I'll be right here, Princess, just a step away." Watching his daughter disappear through that door was one of the hardest things Augustus had ever experienced. The next 60 minutes felt like an eternity. He alternated between pacing the hallway, mentally reviewing documents with Ernest, and compulsively checking his watch. When the door finally opened, Clara came out holding a drawing. Her face was serene, with no signs of stress or distress. "Daddy, look what I drew," she exclaimed, showing a house with people holding hands and a smiling sun in the corner. "It's beautiful, my
Lucy
love, Doctor,"
made a discreet gesture to Augustus.
"Mr. Harrington, can we talk for a moment while Clara finishes coloring her drawing here in the anteroom? My assistant will stay with her." Once alone, the psychologist adopted a professional demeanor. "Mr. Harrington, I need to be direct. What your daughter told me is extremely concerning. Clara shows clear signs of prolonged neglect and, possibly, emotional abuse." Augustus felt his throat tighten. She ... Talked about being left outside. "Yes, among other things. She mentioned staying quiet when Mummy had friends, waiting in the garden until the shouting stopped, and having to hide in the closet when the angry man came." The psychologist consulted her notes. "Clara also exhibits typical behaviors of traumatized children. She startles at loud sounds, especially breaking glass, constantly checks if she has permission to eat or drink, and has an intense fear of abandonment. My God... There's another significant element," the psychologist continued. "When I asked where she feels safe, Clara answered without hesitation, with Daddy and with Mrs. Iris. She also mentioned that only with Daddy does she not need to be afraid to sleep." Augustus covered his face with his hands, fighting back tears. "Mr. Harrington, I will be absolutely clear in my report to the judge. In my professional assessment, Clara should remain in your custody. The mother's reintroduction should be gradual and supervised, following psychological evaluation of Mrs. Harrington and evidence of appropriate treatment for her issues. Thank you, Doctor." Before they left the courthouse, Dr. Ernest met them in the hallway. His normally serious face showed signs of optimism. "Good news. Judge Maxwell accepted all our evidence, including Mrs. Iris's materials. The preliminary hearing will be tomorrow at 9. He paused, looking at Clara, who was distractedly playing with her drawing. "Augustus, I need to warn you. The lawyer Renee Hyatt, Dr. Vincent Thorne, has a difficult reputation. He's going to play hardball." "I'm prepared," Augustus replied, determined. "I'll do whatever it takes." During the drive back to the inn, Augustus received a call from Joshua, his driver. "Sir, I think you should know. There's a suspicious car circling the Evergreen Inn since yesterday. I've already passed the information to Dr. Ernest, but I thought it best to inform you personally. Are you sure it's someone watching us?" "Almost certain. It's a silver Honda Civic, no identification. It drives by slowly, parks for a few minutes, then leaves. It's returned 3 times. Augustus looked at Clara, who had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the emotionally intense day. Thank you for the warning, Joshua. Stay vigilant. If you notice any more suspicious movement, call the police immediately. Upon arriving at the inn, Augustus explained the situation to Mrs. Teresa, who nodded gravely. Don't worry, my son is a sheriff in Vale. I've already asked him to send a patrol car to make discreet rounds here. That night, after putting Clara to sleep, Augustus remained vigilant. Every sound in the forest around the inn made him jump. Around 2 in the morning, headlights briefly illuminated the chalet window. Augustus cautiously peeked through the curtain and glimpsed a silver car parking about 100 yards from the inn. His heart pounded when he saw a figure getting out of the vehicle. Even in the gloom, he recognized Renee's outline. She walked hesitantly towards the chalets, stopping occasionally as if looking for the right one. Augustus grabbed his cell phone, ready to call the police, when he saw the silent approach of a patrol car's lights. 2 officers approached Renee, who was gesticulating agitatedly. After a few minutes of conversation, she was escorted back to her car and, apparently under the officer's orders, the next morning, while they were having breakfast, Mrs. Teresa handed Augustus a small package wrapped in brown paper. I found this hanging on the inn's railing early this morning, she explained. It smells of that expensive French perfume that I only catch a whiff of when I pass by luxury shops. Augustus opened the package cautiously. Inside was a small box of artisanal chocolates and a handwritten note. Mummy is here. I will always find you. A chill ran down his spine. He took a photo with his cell phone and immediately sent it to Dr. Ernest with the message, another violation of the order. Renee was here last night, left this. The lawyer replied promptly, documenting everything for the judge. This is good for us, bad for her. But double your precautions. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 9 in the morning. Augustus decided it would be safer to leave the inn very early and take an alternative route to the courthouse. Clara, sensing the tension, was quiet and thoughtful throughout the journey. It's going to be all right, Princess, Augustus assured her, holding her little hand. It's just a conversation with the judge to decide where you're going to live. What if I have to go back home with Mummy? She asked, her voice almost inaudible. The question hit Augustus like a physical blow. That's not going to happen, Clara. I promise you. From today onwards, we will always stay together. The courthouse was more bustling than the day before. Augustus noticed curious glances following them. After all, the Harringtons were well known in Aspen, and rumors about the separation must already have been circulating. Dr. Ernest awaited them at the entrance to the courtroom. Beside him, Mrs. Iris, impeccably dressed in a teal suit that seemed to have been saved for special occasions, looked determined despite her advanced age. Good morning, Mr. Harrington, she greeted, then bent down to Clara. Good morning, little one. What a beautiful dress. Clara smiled, recognizing her ally. Thank you, Mrs. Iris. You look beautiful too. Ernest pulled Augustus aside. Renee's already inside with her lawyer. Just so you're prepared. She's all ... different. She seems to have transformed overnight. What do you mean? Hair neatly styled, subtle makeup, formal attire. No excesses. She looks like the perfect image of a responsible mother. Augustus felt a bitter taste in his mouth. A convenient facade, exactly. But don't let it shake you. We have the evidence on our side. The courtroom was smaller and more informal than Augustus had imagined. Judge Henry Maxwell, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a keen gaze, occupied a raised bench. 2 representatives from Child Protective Services were present, as well as a social worker. When Augustus entered with Clara, His eyes met Renee's for the first time since that stormy night. She was, as Ernest had warned, completely transformed. Her hair pulled back in an elegant bun, a modest dress, no sign of the disheveled, intoxicated woman he had left days ago. Clara instantly flinched upon seeing her mother, clinging to her father's hand. "Good morning, everyone," the judge began. "This is a preliminary hearing in the custody case of the minor Clara Harrington. We are here to determine temporary custody, where the process follows its normal course." Dr. Ernest was the first to present the case, methodically laying out the evidence, the photographs of the neglected house, Mrs. Iris's testimonies, the incriminating recordings, the psychologist's report, and finally, the recent violations of the restraining order. "Your Honor," he concluded, "the facts are clear and undeniable. Mrs. Harrington demonstrates severe and continued neglect, exposing the minor to situations of physical and emotional risk. Mr. Harrington offers stability, security, and has already initiated psychological support to help Clara process her traumas." Next, it was Dr. Vincent Thorne's turn, Renee's lawyer, a man in an impeccable suit and a calculated smile. "Your Honor, we do not dispute that there were lapses in maternal care. However, context is essential. My client faced severe depression, exacerbated by emotional abandonment from Mr. Harrington, who left her alone for months while traveling the world. Augustus felt his blood boil. He had sent more than enough money, called daily. Mrs. Harrington has already begun psychological treatment and has been abstinent for a week. She recognizes her mistakes and asks only for a chance to demonstrate that she can be the mother Clara deserves." The judge listened carefully to both sides, occasionally making notes. When the lawyers finished, he addressed Augustus and Renee directly. "Mr. Harrington, why did you take so long to return, knowing you had a young daughter at home?" Augustus swallowed hard. "Your Honor, I was expanding our businesses in Europe. It was a crucial opportunity for the company, but I maintained daily contact via video calls. I sent gifts regularly and transferred substantial amounts to ensure my family's well-being. I never imagined Renee could neglect our daughter in this way." The judge nodded, then turned to Renee. "Mrs. Harrington, do you admit to having left your daughter outside the house, exposed to the elements, while receiving visitors?" Renee lowered her gaze, a tear strategically falling. I wasn't well, Your Honor. The loneliness, the pressure. I made terrible mistakes that I can never erase. But I'm getting treatment now. I love my daughter more than anything, and I beg for a chance to make things right." After also hearing Mrs. Iris's emotional testimony and analyzing the psychologist's report, the judge asked for a few minutes to deliberate. While they waited, Augustus noticed Clara staring fixedly at her own hands, avoiding her mother's gaze at all costs. When the judge returned, his expression was grave. Considering the evidence presented and, above all, the well-being of the minor, I grant temporary custody to Mr. Augustus Harrington. Mrs. Renee Harrington may have supervised visits once a week on the courthouse premises. Subject to psychological evaluation and proof of continuous treatment, Augustus felt immense relief, while Renee covered her face with her hands. Additionally, the judge continued, I maintain the restraining order. Mrs. Harrington, you are prohibited from approaching within 200 meters of Harrington or the minor outside the established visitation hours. Further violation will result in the total suspension of visitation rights. As they left the room, Clara finally looked up and asked, her voice trembling, "Does this mean I can stay with you, Daddy?" Augustus knelt down, getting to her eye level. "Yes, my love. You're going to stay with me, and we're going to build a new life together. I promise." As they walked towards the exit, Augustus felt Renee's gaze burning into his back. He didn't need to turn round to know that this was far from over. The first battle was won, but the war for Clara's safety and happiness was just beginning. The light rain falling over Aspen seemed to clear the air, bringing with it the characteristic scent of wet earth and pine trees. A week had passed since the preliminary hearing, and Augustus finally felt he could breathe a little easier. With temporary custody secured, he decided it was time to provide Clara with a permanent home. They couldn't stay at the inn indefinitely. "What do you think of this house, Princess?" he asked, showing photos on his tablet as they had breakfast in the chalet. Clara leaned in to see better. It was a wooden house with wide verandas, surrounded by a lush garden, next to a small stream. It didn't have the luxury of the mansion where they had lived before, but it exuded warmth and security. "Does it have trees to climb?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with interest. Augustus smiled. "Many, and there's a swing hanging from that biggest one, see? Plus there's a stream where we can see little fish. Can we go see it today?" "Of course. In fact, I've already arranged with the realtor to meet us there in an hour." As they prepared to leave, Augustus received a call from Dr. Ernest. "Augustus, I have some updates. First, the police formally registered the violations of the restraining order. Second, Renee underwent the psychological evaluation ordered by the judge. And how did it go?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Surprisingly, well, according to the report, she demonstrates genuine remorse and commitment to treatment. The psychiatrist diagnosed severe depression and alcohol dependence, but noted that she is rigorously following the treatment." Augustus frowned. "Do you think it's sincere, or just a strategy to regain custody?" "Hard to say. People change when they face severe consequences, but remember, even if she truly is recovering, it doesn't erase what Clara went through." "Certainly not." "And what about the first supervised visit?" "Scheduled for Friday, 2 in the afternoon, at the courthouse. A social worker and a child psychologist will be present. You are not required to stay in the room, but you need to bring Clara after hanging up." Augustus sat next to his daughter, who was tying the laces of the new sneakers they had bought together. "Clara, I need to tell you something. On Friday, you're going to have a meeting with Mummy." The girl's little hands stopped what they were doing, and her eyes looked up, apprehensive. "Do I have to go?" "Yes, my love. The judge decided you should see your mother once a week. But don't worry, I'll be there. And there will also be other people to make sure everything goes well." Clara lowered her gaze, thoughtful. "Is Mummy still angry with me?" The question broke Augustus's heart. "No, Clara. Mummy should never have been angry with you. Nothing that happened was your fault. Is she going to take me away?" "No, Princess. You're going to keep living with me. This meeting is just for you to talk a little bit, and then we'll go home together. I promise." Clara nodded, not entirely convinced, but confident enough in her father's word to continue tying her shoelaces. The house by the stream was even more charming in person. Surrounded by ancient pine trees, it offered privacy without isolation. It was only 10 minutes from downtown Aspen, but felt like a world apart. The interior was simple, but well maintained. 3 bedrooms. A spacious living room with a fireplace, an integrated kitchen, and a veranda that wrapped around the entire structure. Clara explored the space with growing enthusiasm, especially when she discovered that one of the bedrooms had a window with a direct view of the stream. "Can I have this room, Daddy?" she asked, already imagining where she would put her things. Of course, Augustus replied, observing how his daughter seemed lighter, more childlike, away from the shadows of the Harrington mansion. When the realtor stepped away to answer a call, Augustus knelt beside Clara, who was fascinated watching a blue bird in the nearby tree. "What do you think, Princess? Do you want to live here?" She smiled, a genuine smile that was still rare to see. "Yes, it looks like a happy place." That same afternoon, Augustus signed the rental agreement with a purchase option. The move would be quick, as they wouldn't take anything from the old mansion. Augustus wanted a complete fresh start, without objects that could awaken painful memories in Clara. Over the next 3 days they dedicated themselves to transforming the house into a home. They bought simple but cozy furniture, colorful bedding, kitchen utensils, and small details that made all the difference. Plants for the veranda, cheerful paintings for the walls, a collection of children's books, and new toys for Clara. The girl's room received special attention. Augustus allowed her to choose everything, from the color of the walls, a soft blue like the summer sky, to the bedspread printed with stars and planets. A low bookshelf was filled with books and small treasures Clara found on her explorations, colorful pebbles from the stream, bird feathers, dry leaves of interesting shapes. On Thursday night, the eve of the meeting with Renee, Augustus noticed that Clara was restless. She barely touched her dinner and remained silent during the story he read before bedtime. "Is something bothering you, my love?" he asked, caressing her hair. "What if Mummy wants to take me to her house?" Clara's voice was almost a whisper. "That's not going to happen. The judge decided you live with me now. But what if she gets angry again? What if she yells?" Augustus felt a pang of anger, quickly replaced by protective determination. "Clara, look at me. Tomorrow special people will be present who make sure children are always safe. If Mummy says or does anything that scares you, you can simply leave the room and I'll be waiting outside. No one will force you to do anything you don't want to do." She nodded, looking a little relieved. "Can I bring my new bear?" "Of course. I'm sure Mr. Bubbles will enjoy keeping you company." The next morning Clara was silent as they prepared to leave. She dressed without protest in the outfit Augustus had set aside, a simple but pretty dress and a cardigan in case she felt cold in the courthouse's air. Conditioning. Mr. Bubbles, the brown teddy bear they had bought together, was firmly clutched in her arms. The drive to the courthouse was tense. Augustus tried to distract Clara by pointing out interesting things through the window, but the girl only responded with monosyllables, her gaze distant. In the courthouse parking lot, before they got out of the car, Augustus turned to face her. "Remember, Princess, no matter what happens in there, we'll both come back to our new home together, to our special little spot by the stream, with the birds and the trees. Nothing will change that." A small smile appeared on Clara's face. "Promise?" "I promise, with all my heart." The room designated for supervised visits was different from the austere courtroom. There were toys, books, colorful drawings on the walls, an attempt to create a less intimidating environment. The social worker, Martha Peterson, a middle-aged woman with a gentle expression, greeted them at the door. "Hello, Clara," she said, kneeling down to be at the girl's eye level. "What a beautiful bear you brought. What's his name?" "Mr. Bubbles," Clara replied shyly. "A perfect name. He can come in with you, if you like. Your mother is already waiting inside along with Dr. Philip, who is a child-friendly psychologist." Clara looked at Augustus, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll be right out here, Princess." If you need me, just ask Martha to call me." With hesitation, Clara followed the social worker into the room. When the door closed, Augustus felt as if a part of him had been torn away. He sat on the nearest chair, trying to contain his anxiety. Dr. Ernest, who had arrived to officially accompany the visit, sat beside him. "It's going to be all right. Martha is excellent, and Dr. Philip has decades of experience. They will immediately intervene if they notice any signs of stress in Clara." The minutes dragged like hours. Augustus alternated between pacing the hallway and obsessively checking his watch. After about 20 minutes, the door opened and Dr. Philip came out, walking towards him. "Mr. Harrington, I think it would be good for you to come in now." Augustus felt a tightness in his chest. Did something happen? "Nothing alarming, but Clara is very tense. Your presence might help." Upon entering the room, Augustus saw Clara sitting in one of the small chairs, clutching Mr. Bubbles, her eyes fixed on the floor. Renee was on the other side of the table, visibly trying to hold back tears. Martha was beside Clara, a hand gently resting on her shoulder. "Daddy," the girl exclaimed upon seeing him, running into his arms. Augustus lifted her, feeling the tremor in her small body. "It's all right, princess. I'm here now." Renee stood up, uncertain. She looked different from the last time Augustus had seen her in court. No elaborate makeup, loose hair, visible dark circles, despite the obvious attempt to hide them. She seemed genuinely distraught. "She doesn't want to talk to me," Renee said, her voice choked, "or even look at me." Martha intervened with a professional tone. "Mr. Harrington, we believe it would be beneficial if you remained present during the rest of the visit. This may help Clara feel more secure." Augustus nodded, sitting down with Clara on his lap. The girl kept her face buried in his chest, refusing to look at her mother. "Clara," he said softly, "it's all right. I'm here with you. No one will hurt you or take you away." Slowly, Clara lifted her face, though she still avoided looking directly at Renee. Dr. Philip tried to facilitate the dialogue. "Clara, your mother brought something for you. Do you want to see what it is?" With reluctance, the girl turned slightly, glancing sideways as Renee placed a small photo album on the table. "These are photos of us," Renee explained, carefully opening the album. "Remember this day at the park? You had just turned 4. The first photo showed a younger Clara, smiling happily on a swing with Renee beside her. Other images followed: birthdays, outings, happy moments that seemed to belong to another life. Clara briefly looked at the photos, then turned to her father. "Can we go home now?" she whispered. Augustus exchanged glances with the professionals present. Martha gave a small nod, indicating it would be better not to force the situation. "I think that's enough for today," said Dr. Philip. "Clara, you can go with your father now. And perhaps next week we can try again when you're feeling more comfortable." Renee seemed devastated, but nodded in agreement. As Augustus stood up with Clara in his arms, she made a final plea. "Clara, my love, Mummy is trying to get better. Mummy is sorry." The girl didn't respond, hiding her face in her father's shoulder again. In the hallway, Martha approached Augustus. "Mr. Harrington, this is perfectly normal. Children who have experienced trauma need time to rebuild trust. Don't force Clara, but also don't discourage contact with her mother. With time and appropriate conditions, the relationship can be repaired. I understand." And about Renee, she seemed different. "Mrs. Harrington is rigorously following treatment, according to the reports we've received." total alcohol abstinence, therapy 3 times a week, medication for depression. The recovery process is long, but there are positive signs. On the way back home, Clara remained silent, looking out the window. Only when they spotted the roof of their new house among the trees did she finally speak. Mummy looked sad. Augustus chose his words carefully. Yes, she's sad. I think she realized she did wrong things and hurt you. She said she's taking medicine to get better. That's true. Your mother is sick, Clara. Not the kind of sickness you can see, like a cold, but a sickness that affects how she feels and acts. She's trying to heal. Clara considered this for a moment. When someone is sick, we don't get angry at them, do we? Augustus felt a lump in his throat at the child's wisdom. That's true, Princess. We don't get angry, but we also take care until the person is completely healed. Upon arriving home, a surprise awaited them. Mrs. Teresa was on the veranda, next to a large box with holes. I thought you might want a little more joy in this new house, the lady said with a smile. Inside the box, a golden Labrador puppy stirred, barking happily. Clara's eyes widened in pure enchantment. A puppy? Is he really ours? All yours, Mrs. Teresa confirmed. My niece's son had this litter, and this one was in need of a home full of love. For the first time that day, Clara's face completely lit up. She knelt before the box, letting the puppy lick her face, laughing with abandon. What shall we call him? Augustus asked, moved by the instant transformation in his daughter. Clara thought for a moment, watching the puppy's golden fur shine under the afternoon sun. Sunny. We'll call him Sunny, because he's yellow and warm and makes everything happier. That night, as Augustus made Clara's bed, with Sunny sleeping curled at her feet, the girl looked thoughtfully at her father. Daddy, I think one day I can talk to Mummy again. Not now, but one day. Augustus sat on the edge of the bed, his heart full of mixed emotions. When you're ready, my love. There's no rush. Do you think she'd get better from her sickness? I hope so, Princess. I really do. As Clara fell asleep, Augustus remained seated beside her, watching her peaceful breathing. Outside, the rain began to fall again, but inside, in this small refuge they had built together, there was finally peace. Months passed, like pages turning in a storybook. Aspen's harsh winter gave way to spring, which painted the streamside house's garden with wildflowers of all colors. Sunny, the golden Labrador, was no longer a clumsy puppy, but a loyal companion who followed Clara everywhere, especially on her exploratory expeditions around the property. The routine Augustus had so carefully established had transformed into a comfort for both of them. Mornings began with breakfast, prepared together. Clara insisted on helping make pancakes on weekends. Then, while she attended a small, welcoming school near the town center, Augustus worked remotely from the office he had set up at home. Lunches were simple but nutritious meals. Afternoons brought homework, playtime with Sunny, and occasionally visits from Mrs. Teresa or Mrs. Iris, who became cherished presences in the new life they were building. That sunny September morning, Augustus watched Clara from the kitchen window. She ran across the lawn with Sunny, her hair, now longer and healthier, fluttering behind her like a golden flag. Her laughter, once so rare, now frequently echoed across the property. The weekly sessions with the child psychologist were taking effect. The nightmares had diminished, as had the fear of being left alone or doing something wrong. Augustus's cell phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Dr. Ernest. Final hearing scheduled for Thursday, 10 a.m. All reports received. Can we talk later today? Augustus replied affirmatively, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest. Although the evidence continued to be in his favor, and the social worker's reports on Clara's progress were excellent, he couldn't shake the anxiety. This would be the hearing that would permanently determine his daughter's custody. Supervised visits with Renee had evolved slowly. The first few weeks were tense, with Clara barely speaking, often asking to leave early. Gradually, however, the barriers began to yield. At the last visit, a week ago, Clara had even shown Renee a drawing she had made at school, a yellow house with Sunny in the backyard, and, significantly, 3 figures, herself, her father, and a little apart, her mother. Renee, for her part, seemed truly committed to her recovery. Treatment reports indicated consistent progress. She remained sober, diligently attended therapy sessions, and took her medication regularly. During visits, she presented herself appropriately dressed, controlled her emotions, and, most importantly, respected Clara's boundaries, never forcing proximity or physical contact when her daughter seemed uncomfortable. Sometimes, Augustus wondered if he should feel more compassion for his ex-wife. It was difficult, considering everything Clara had suffered. But how could he explain to his daughter that she should forgive, without setting the example himself? "Daddy, look what I found." Clara's voice brought him back to the present. She ran into the kitchen, Sunny at her heels, holding something in her cupped hands. "What is it, princess?" She carefully opened her hands, revealing a small green frog. It was near the stream. "Can I keep it?" Augustus smiled. "Frogs are happier in nature, my love. But we can draw her before we return her home." Clara considered for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll call her Emerald while she's visiting." After carefully documenting Emerald with drawings and a cell phone photo, father and daughter returned the small frog to the stream. Clara waved solemnly as the amphibian hopped away. "Goodbye, Emerald. Come back to visit whenever you like." Later that day, while Clara was doing her homework at the kitchen table, Augustus received a visit from Dr. Ernest. They talked on the veranda, away from the girl's attentive ears. "All reports are favorable," the lawyer explained. "Clara's psychologist strongly recommends maintaining custody with you," highlighting the child's exceptional progress in recent months. The social worker, who supervised the visits, also presented a positive evaluation of the environment you created here. "And what about Renee?" That's the interesting point. Her treatment reports are also positive. 6 months of proven sobriety, significant progress in therapy. Her psychiatrist attests that she is responding well to medication and demonstrates genuine remorse and a desire for reparation. Augustus frowned. Could this complicate our case? Not exactly. The history of neglect is well documented, and Clara's current well-being with you is undeniable. What might change is the visitation schedule and, eventually, the possibility of unsupervised visits. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Augustus admitted. I still don't trust her. Understandable. But remember that the judge will primarily consider what is best for Clara in the long term. And having a healthy relationship with her mother, as long as it's safe, is usually considered important. That night, after putting Clara to bed, Augustus remained on the veranda, contemplating the stars that twinkled above the pine trees. What would the future hold for his daughter, for himself? The idea of sharing, even minimally, Clara's life with Renee still caused him discomfort. But he couldn't deny that his ex-wife seems to be genuinely changing. On the morning of the hearing, Clara helped her father choose his tie. She opted for the blue one with small goldfish, a Father's Day gift from her. "Are you going to talk to the judge again today, Daddy?" she asked as they had breakfast. Yes, Princess. He's going to officially decide that you'll continue living with me, and Mummy will be there. Yes, she will. Clara was silent for a moment, stirring her bowl of cereal. Daddy, I have something to give Mummy. Can you give it to her? Surprised, Augustus watched his daughter run to her room and return with a folded drawing. What is it, my love? It's a drawing of us. Me, you, Sonny, and Mummy. The teacher said, drawing helps when you have complicated feelings. Augustus looked at the drawing with emotion. It showed the streamside house with the 4 figures mentioned in the garden. Renee's figure was closer to the group than in the previous drawing. It's beautiful, Clara. I'm sure your mother will love it. As they headed to the courthouse, Augustus felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him still harbored resentment for everything that had happened. Another part recognized that people could change, could heal from their wounds and internal illnesses. Clara, in her childlike wisdom, seemed to be finding a path of forgiveness that he was still struggling to walk. The courthouse was quiet that morning. Mrs. Iris was already waiting for them in the lobby. Impeccably dressed as she had been the first time, Mrs. Teresa had also come to stay with Clara during the hearing. Good morning, little one, Mrs. Iris smiled, hugging Clara. What a beautiful dress you're wearing today. Thank you. Daddy chose it. He said green is the color of hope. Augustus left Clara with the 2 ladies in the waiting area and followed Dr. Ernest to the courtroom. Upon entering, his eyes immediately met Renee's. She seemed nervous, but composed, dressed with elegant simplicity. Beside her, Dr. Vincent consulted papers with a serious expression. Judge Maxwell entered shortly after, and as the hearing began. The reports were largely favorable to Augustus. Dr. Ernest presented the case competently, highlighting the stable and loving environment his client provided Clara, the girl's progress in school and therapy, and her successful adaptation to the new home and routine. When it was his turn, Dr. Vincent surprised everyone with his approach. Your Honor, we do not contest primary custody for Mr. Harrington. My client recognizes that Clara's well-being is being fully met in the current situation. What we request is a review of the visitation schedule, considering Mrs. Harrington's documented progress in her treatment. The judge raised his eyebrows, clearly not expecting this concession. Could you elaborate, Doctor? Bi-weekly visits initially, still supervised, but with progression to unsupervised visits after a positive 3-month evaluation. Eventually, we would like Clara to be able to spend some weekends with her mother, always respecting her adaptation and comfort, of course. Augustus felt tense. Weekends with Renee. The idea of Clara sleeping at his ex-wife's house, away from his protection, caused him immediate anguish. The judge seemed to notice his discomfort. Mr. Harrington, would you like to comment on this proposal? Augustus hesitated, looking briefly at Renee. There was a plea in her eyes, but also something more, a newfound dignity, a sobriety that went beyond alcohol abstinence. Your Honor, I acknowledge my ex-wife's progress. However, my main concern is, and always will be, Clara's well-being. She is still recovering from the trauma she experienced. I believe any change must be extremely gradual and always conditioned on a psychological evaluation of how it affects her. The judge nodded. A comprehensible position. He consulted the reports before him again. Martha Peterson, Doctor, the social worker who supervised the visits, recommends a gradual and careful increase in contact between mother and daughter, always prioritizing the child's comfort cues. He looked up at Augustus. This seems aligned with your concern, Mr. Harrington. Yes, Your Honor. That being said, I am ready to render my decision. The judge adjusted his glasses and adopted a formal tone. Considering all the evidence presented, professional reports, and the best interest of the minor, Clara Harrington, I determine the following. Permanent custody is granted to Mr. Augustus Harrington, with visitation rights for Mrs. Renee Harrington, under the following conditions. Bi-weekly supervised visits for 3 months, followed by a psychological evaluation of the minor. If positive, progression to unsupervised visits for another 3 months, with a new evaluation. Only after 6 months of successful visits and positive evaluations will we consider the possibility of overnight stays at the maternal residence. Augustus felt relief mixed with resignation. It was fair, he realized now. It gave Clara time to adapt, maintain the necessary protections, but also opened the way for a possible healthy reconciliation with her mother. Additionally, the judge continued, Mrs. Harrington must continue her treatment with bi-monthly reports. Any relapse will result in an immediate review of the visitation schedule. At the end of the hearing, as everyone was preparing to leave, Augustus surprised himself by approaching Renee. Clara made this for you, he said, extending the folded drawing. Renee received it with trembling hands. As she opened it, her eyes welled up. She drew us together. Not exactly together, Augustus corrected gently, but in the same landscape. It's a start. Renee looked up, meeting his eyes without challenge, only genuine vulnerability. Thank you, Augustus, for not completely preventing her from seeing me, despite everything. I know I don't deserve ... I'm not doing this for you, he interrupted. I'm doing it for Clara. She deserves the chance to know the mother you can become, not just the one you were. I'm going to prove I can be better. For her. And also, for myself. When Augustus returned to the waiting area, he found Clara playing peacefully with a doll that Mrs. Teresa always carried in her purse for children's entertainment emergencies. Everything all right, Daddy? She asked, looking up hopefully. Everything's all right, my love. Shall we go home? On the way back, Clara asked the question that clearly worried her. Am I going to have to go live with Mummy now? No, Princess. You're going to keep living with me and Sonny in our Streamside house. But you'll be able to visit your mother every 2 weeks, as you've been doing. And if everything goes well, one day you might be able to spend more time with her. Clara considered this for a moment, like a weekend. Yes, but only after a long time. And only if you feel comfortable with it. The girl nodded, seeming satisfied with the answer. Can I invite Mummy to see Sonny one day? Augustus felt something untie in his chest, a knot of resentment that was beginning very slowly to unravel. If you want to, we can think about that. Perhaps when she comes to pick you up for a visit. When they arrived home, Sonny greeted them with his usual canine excitement. Clara immediately threw herself to the floor to hug him, laughing as she received enthusiastic licks. I'm going to show Sonny my new drawing, she announced, running to her room. Augustus stood on the veranda, observing the property he now truly considered home. Streams sparkled under the afternoon sun. The trees swayed gently with the breeze, and wildflowers dotted the lawn with vibrant colors. So many transformations in such a short time. Clara returned with her latest drawing, a much more cheerful creation than the previous one. It showed herself in the center, with Sonny, her father, and now, timidly included, 2 additional figures, Mrs. Carissa and Mrs. Iris. At the top, a large yellow sun illuminated the entire scene. It's our new family, Daddy, she explained. It's not like other families, but it's ours. It's perfect, princess, he replied, hugging her. That night, after Clara fell asleep, Augustus sat on the veranda with a cup of tea. The rain began to fall softly, a comforting sound. Sonny slept at his feet, occasionally moving his paws as if running in dreams. He thought about how life could change in unexpected directions. A year ago, he would never have imagined being there, alone with his daughter, in a modest house surrounded by pine trees. Nor would he have imagined that he could begin to find peace with the past, or that Renee could truly change. The sound of the rain intensified, but this time it didn't bring painful memories. The rain, which had once symbolized abandonment and suffering for Clara, was now just rain, water that nourished the earth, that made the flowers grow, that filled the stream where they watched colorful little fish together. A month later, when Renee came to pick up Clara for her first unsupervised visit, the sky was heavy with gray clouds. Clara, dressed in a yellow raincoat and matching rubber boots, was eager to show her mother the small vegetable garden she had started in the backyard. "Look, Mummy, I planted strawberries and cherry tomatoes. Daddy helped me with the seedlings." Renee, visibly moved by her daughter's enthusiasm, knelt to examine the plants. "They're beautiful, Clara. Next time you visit me, we can plant flowers on my balcony too. What do you think? Can I plant daisies? They're my favorites." "Of course, my love." Augustus watched the scene from the veranda, still with contradictory feelings, but predominantly at peace. Dr. Ernest had once told him, "You don't have to trust her immediately. Trust the process, the professionals, and especially your daughter. Children have an impressive radar for authenticity." When the first drops began to fall, Augustus expected Clara to run for cover. Instead, to his surprise, the girl stretched out her arms, tilted her face to the sky, and laughed, spinning in circles under the light rain. "The rain washes away old things, Daddy," she shouted, repeating what she had said months ago, "and it makes new things grow." Renee looked at Augustus, a silent question in her eyes. He nodded slightly, a small gesture that said, "We're trying. We're moving forward." As the rain fell gently upon the three of them, Augustus realized that Clara, in her childlike wisdom, had understood something that adults often forgot, that even the most devastating storms eventually pass, that the water that destroys is also the one that nourishes, and that sometimes one must allow the rain to wash away the past so that new seeds can germinate. Sonny joined them on the lawn, barking happily at the raindrops. And there, under the spring rain, a new chapter began. Not perfect, not without challenges, but founded on something that not even the worst storm could tear away: the unconditional love between a father and his daughter, and the extraordinary resilience of a child's heart that, despite all adversities, still found reasons to dance in the rain. On the wall of the house, protected by a simple frame, Clara's most recent drawing showed her expanded family, including, now, a closer maternal figure, not fully integrated, but moving in that direction. Above them all, a large, colorful umbrella protected them, not from the rain, which fell freely around them, but offering what everyone needed: a shared shelter, a space of security, a silent promise that, this time, no one else would be left outside. End of story, dear listeners. We hope Augustus and Clara's story has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking the link on the left. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life. Tell us in the comments what touched you most in this story of rebuilding and forgiveness. We look forward to reading your impressions.